Good morning, Campbell McCreary here, Amvest Capital, live from New York City. Welcome to the Amvest Capital live webinar with NevGold Corp. NevGold trades on the venture as NAU and on the OTCQB as NAUFF. Hope you'll enjoy today's program. It will be available in on-demand replay about an hour and a half after we wrap up today. A few housekeeping details that are important. I can tell you that feedback is very important to us, and feel free to, you should highlighting the feedback box. You should, at the end of the show, please share your feedback. But in the meantime, asking questions of management is very important. I'm highlighting the ask a question of management. Type in a question, press send, and we'll ask it for you. If you really like this show, during the event, you can share the event. So that's what's glowing there right now. Put it on Twitter, email it to someone. And again, the link always works both for the live and for the on-demand. Amvest, of course, is a New York-based specialist investment management and corporate finance firm focused solely on the natural resource sector. And again, our disclaimer, this call is absolutely for informational purposes only. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Brandon Bonifacio, the President and CEO. Welcome to the show and to being virtually in New York.
Thanks, Campbell. Good morning, everyone. First and foremost, I will be making forward-looking statements, and you can read this slide on your own accord. Why NevGold? Just a quick snapshot of the company. We were able to acquire 2 advanced exploration resource stage projects from McEwen Mining in the second quarter of this year, the Limousine Butte and Cedar Wash projects. The acquisition cost of these projects was less than $7 per ounce of historical resources, so very modest cost to NevGold. Both the projects combined have had over $50 million US spent on them. So there's a very large historical geological database that we're currently leveraging. We utilized that, and we were able to fast track our way into our first drilling program, which commenced as of last Thursday. In terms of the resource and exploration upside, we see a lot of potential at Limousine Butte and Cedar Wash and our Ptarmigan projects. These are 3 district scale projects in Nevada and British Columbia, and we'll walk through some of the upside today in terms of how we are driving to that multi-million ounce resource base. In terms of the team, over 175 years of combined experience. A lot of this has been in the southwestern part of the USA. We do have a clearly defined roadmap of how to advance a project through exploration, studies, and permitting in the state of Nevada, and that's what we will be leveraging under the NevGold ownership today with Limousine Butte and Cedar Wash. Structure and financing, we have a very tightly held, less than 50 million shares outstanding. We have over 4.5 million Canadian in the bank after our going public transaction and going public financing. So we are well funded into 2022 to complete some very active field programs from an exploration and drilling standpoint. And lastly, we have a clearly defined path to over 1 million ounces of near surface oxide resources in Nevada, and we will be further building on that, driving towards a multi-million ounce resource base, which we feel will drive a significant re-rate in the marketplace from a valuation standpoint. As we take a bird's eye view at the portfolio itself, and starting in Nevada, as I mentioned, we picked up the Limousine Butte and Cedar Wash projects from McEwen Mining. Limousine Butte is a Carlin-style deposit on the southern part of the Carlin Trend. It has a historical resource of just under 300,000 ounces of near-surface oxide material at close to 0.8 gram per ton gold. So for all intents and purposes, it is a higher-grade oxide-style deposit. And we see a lot of opportunities in further building on that resource base from some of the known areas of mineralization that were previously identified. Cedar Wash is an earlier stage project in the southeastern part of the state. It was a grassroots discovery made by McEwen Mining in the 2015-2016 timeframe. It's a gold-silver deposit, and we feel it offers some nice exploration upside in our portfolio, and we look to advance it over Q4 with surface geology, and we will follow that up with a drill program in Q1 of 2022. And then shifting up to British Columbia, and as a reference point, The Ptarmigan project was picked up by way of the reverse takeover transaction we completed with a company called Silver Mountain Mines in Q2 of this year. It's an extremely high-grade polymetallic silver, gold, copper deposit, and it has both epithermal and sulfide-style mineralization. And some of the historical drill assays trend north of 2,300 gram per ton silver, 37 gram per ton gold, and 1% copper. So it's a very interesting valuation lever that NevGold has to pull, and we look forward to advancing the project over the rest of this year and into 2022, and that will drive further value for NevGold. As we zoom in on Limousine Butte, you can see where it's situated on the southeastern part of the Carlin Trend. It's a very interesting asset from a land position standpoint, as it's a consolidated close to 67 square kilometers, all on BLM federal ground. Infrastructure, as most places in Nevada go, it's fantastic. There's road access running right near the project. There's a power line running right near the project. And we also have water rights organized. So again, from an infrastructure standpoint, it checks all the boxes. And as we look at the project historically, in the bottom right table, you can see the historical resource that's currently on the project and stated. Just under 300,000 ounces at close to 0.8 gram per ton gold. Worth noting here, that was done in 2009 at an $850 per ounce gold price, using a cutoff grade of 0.41 gram per ton. In today's world, the cutoff grade would be closer to 0.15 to 0.2, based on referencing similar style projects in Nevada. So there's some low-bearing fruit in terms of resource expansion right out of the gates without even lifting a fingertip. And I think also worth noting on this slide is some of the higher grade drill intercepts, which you can see 12 meters are close to 7 gram per ton, 26 meters are close to 4 gram per ton. There are higher grade areas within our large land package. We will be testing those in this upcoming program using a core rig, and we think that will drive our resource grade higher. And that offers an opportunity in terms of further defining some of those higher grade feeder structures, which were never previously tested by way of reverse circulation drilling in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. As we build on the resource story, this slide is extremely figurative in terms of what we have and what was previously done on the project. As you can see, there's a 20-kilometer northeast to southwest trending fault structure. That fault structure acted as the key conduit of mineralization and has been the key focus of the historical drilling on the project. As you can see in the center figure, the sheer volume of drilling, over 900 holes, over 120,000 meters of drilling. A lot of this goes down to a depth of only approximately 150 meters. So there's a lot of opportunities at depth to further test the known areas of mineralization and along strike laterally. Looking at the figure on the right, Resurrection Ridge is where that historical resource of close to 300,000 ounces is situated. Cadillac Valley, southeast on the trend structure, is one of the near-term resource expansion targets that we've identified based on our due diligence and review of the historical database. This looks to be a very interesting asset and deposit within the large Limousine Butte land package. It already has 23,000 meters of historical drilling. We feel with an initial 3,000 to 4,000 meter drill program at Cadillac Valley, we will be able to state this in the resource category by Q1 of 2022. So when we point to the 1 million ounce marker by Q1 of 2022, there's the Resurrection Ridge deposit and the Cadillac Valley deposit, and we believe those will allow us to drive to that million ounce target by Q1 of next year. And just an update for the audience, based on the last update we provided, which was in the July timeframe, we've now started drilling. So you can see we've received our notice of intent permit to commence exploration and drilling at the project. Firstly, at Resurrection Ridge, we have a drill rig lined up. All of the earthworks, water, and support personnel are organized, and drilling has commenced as of last Thursday. The figure on the right, and you can see the drill rig in the forefront and where it's situated compared to the historically mined Golden Butte pit. So it's a very exciting time for the company. The plan forward is we are going to push into our 10,000 meter drill program. We will submit the next notice of intents at Cadillac Valley and the northeastern area, which will allow us to drill those target areas. And that will allow us to push into that Q1 2022 resource update, which will incorporate all of the deposits with well-defined areas of mineralization. Shifting to the southeastern part of the state and our Cedar Wash project, this is a very interesting exploration asset. We've now doubled the land position to approximately 40 square kilometers. This is again all on federal BLM ground. Infrastructure again is fantastic in terms of road access. And as we look at some of the work that's been completed on Cedar Wash to date, it's had a lot of the surface geology completed in terms of rock chip and soil sampling, but that was only situated on the western part of the land package. What we've now done, we've staked another 20 square kilometers to the southwest. This encapsulates all key prospective targets in the district. In the newly staked ground, there's soil samples up to 2.1 gram per ton gold and drill assays of over 1 gram per ton gold. So we have a lot of interesting targets identified. With that being said, from a Cedar Wash development standpoint, we are going to complete the surface geology across the entire 40 square kilometer land package, and that will be followed by a drilling program in Q1 of 2022. So we are going to phase into our work at Cedar Wash after we commence the work at Limousine Butte. And shifting up to British Columbia, the Ptarmigan project, it's a very large district scale project in the southeastern part of the province. It's 93 square kilometers. It was a historical high-grade producer. And as we look at what the project encompasses today, it's by no means as early stage as certain individuals seem to think. It's had over 14,000 meters of historical drilling, intercepts 4.6 meters of close to 2,000 gram per ton gold, silver, 0.8 gram per ton gold, and close to 0.72% copper, north of 1.1 meters of 2,300 gram per ton silver, 1 gram per ton gold, and over 1% copper. So this is a Bonanza style grade deposit. It's also had a lot of underground development and all the geophysical and geochemical analysis completed. From a NevGold standpoint, we've now digitized that database as previously stated. We're working through it with our technical group, and we are pulling a plan to advance the asset in 2022, and that will form the basis of how we de-risk and further extract value from an interesting lever that we have as a company that effectively gets no value ascribed to it today by the market. Segueing into our program over the next quarter and into 2022, and it's very systematic based. So at Limousine Butte, we've started our 10,000 meter drill program, which will flow over the rest of this year and into Q1 of next year. And that will drive into that Q1 2022 interim resource update. So that is well far advanced in terms of the drill program, and it will be and drive a lot of steady news flow over the next 3 to 6 months by way of the drill bit. In terms of Cedar Wash, we've started our systematic surface geology work. That will flow into a Q1 2022 drill program once we've identified the best targets in the district. And from a Ptarmigan standpoint, we've completed the data compilation. We're currently working through it with our technical group, and we look to plan a program for that asset in 2022, which again offers a pretty interesting lever for us from a value standpoint as a company. Moving from the assets to the team and corporate structure, as we look at the group of individuals that we have at both the executive and board level, one of the key hires that was made from the last update with the Amvest network was the chief geologist, Derek Unger. He's an individual that has a wealth of experience working on Carlin-style deposits in Nevada. He just came off a stint doing resource estimation with one of the key engineering firms in Reno. So he has a lot of experience from a resource estimation side as well. And he's been key and critical to driving that program forward in an extremely expedited fashion. So the fact that we were listed in June 29th and the drills were turning in the first week in October is a true testament to the group we have in place at both the executive and board level. And I think when I'm shifting to the board, it's very nice to have individuals with a lot of expertise in different subject matter areas. So we have all of the capital markets, technical, and ESG sides covered off on with individuals like Julio Bonifacio, Victor Bradley, and guys in Nevada like Greg French and Tim Dyer. So again, very pleased with what we've been able to pull together from an executive and board group. And we believe that gives us operational expertise and a competitive advantage in terms of operating in Nevada and getting business done in an expedited fashion. From a capital structure standpoint, we have less than 50 million shares outstanding after the reverse takeover and our 6.3 million financing that was completed in June of this year. Our market cap today is just under 20 million Canadian, and we have approximately 4.5 million Canadian in the bank. So we are well funded into 2022. There are no near-term financing requirements in terms of the programs we have planned. And from a valuation standpoint, we do think we trade at an extremely modest level compared to our peers. And I think as we get into our initial program and assays start to be released, that will drive that valuation re-rate in the market. From a shareholder registry, again, extremely tightly held. Approximately 60% is held by NevGold and the old Silver Mountain shareholders. In terms of the new investors that came into the financing, that's approximately 30% of the float, and 10% went to McEwen as part of the acquisition. And touching again on that potential valuation re-rate, this slide is a great figure to look at in terms of the roadmap of how we feel and believe we can deliver from the current state today at exploration or historical resource into the resource category, and then pushing further into the engineering studies at a preliminary economic assessment or pre-feasibility stage. We're currently trading at less than $20 million market cap. If we can drive to that million-ounce marker and beyond, comparable companies in Nevada are trading at approximately $56 per ounce in the ground. So you can reverse calculate what that equates to if we can drive to that million ounces and beyond. And we feel that is a clear valuation re-rate in the market over the next 6 to 9 months. But further to that, as we build the critical mass from a resource standpoint and drive into the study level work, that creates another lift from a valuation standpoint. And as we push and de-risk and advance the assets into the preliminary economic assessment and pre-feasibility stage over the next 12 to 18 months, we feel that will drive another valuation re-rate in terms of where we're trading at in the market. A great reference point from Nevada that's occurred in the last year is the sale of Corvus Gold. That's a story that's been around. They drove the critical mass and a resource standpoint up to the multi-million ounce category. They completed a preliminary economic assessment, and they were recently acquired for 520 million Canadian at $120 per ounce in the ground. So from a NevGold standpoint, we see a clear path over the next 12 to 24 months, driving into the resource category and then driving further into the study level work, advancing and de-risking our assets. And we believe that will drive a valuation re-rate in the marketplace accordingly. That was it for the slide presentation, Campbell. I'll open it up to any questions at this stage.
Sure. Are you ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready. Is the audience ready?
Okay. Building up anticipation. Is Limousine on BLM ground? And what existing royalties are there?
Yes, all on BLM ground. So federal ground, which naturally makes the permitting situation much easier and simple from a timeline standpoint. In terms of the current royalties encumbering the project, the total royalties over the entire land package is 3%. So it's 2.5% to Franco-Nevada, and 0.5% was issued to McEwen as part of the transaction terms.
Okay. When do you anticipate there will be a rig on the site, and what's drilling timeline?
So the rig is currently on site, and maybe I'll go back and use the fancy draw tool, but this is the current historically mined Golden Butte pit, but the drill rig is on site and it is turning. And hopefully people can see the pen marker on the finger.
Yep. Was it difficult to get find a rig and drillers? I know there's a lot of backup.
It was. Luckily, we have a very strong network in Nevada with our board and executive team, so we're able to line up a rig quite simply. But I know it's an issue or bottleneck faced by a number of groups operating today in the state of Nevada and the Southwest U.S.
Excellent. Does mineralization appear to be continuous between historic and current drilling?
Yes, and again, I will flip to a slide that we had in the appendix. You can see where the historical pit was mined out, the Golden Butte pit, which produced approximately 100,000 ounces. Mineralization trends continuously to the northeast. We're initially testing the Resurrection Ridge target, which was drilled, but there's further targets identified to the northeast that we will be stepping out and drill testing as well in this 10,000 meter program. So that's Resurrection Ridge. And then I think I will shift back to a slide that was in the middle of the deck. In between Resurrection Ridge and Cadillac Valley to the southwest is an extremely prospective area, along with southwest, that trend structure from Cadillac Valley. So yes, we do need to test a lot of these areas that were not historically drilled, and that offers a pretty interesting opportunity for NevGold in terms of the lateral expansion from a near surface resource standpoint.
Someone is referring to high levels of antimony at Limousine Butte. Do you anticipate, were that to be the case, do you anticipate issues environmentally or metallurgically?
So antimony is a mineral that we have seen, but not to a level that would create any issues from an environmental standpoint. So we see no issues with that, Campbell.
Has anyone in your management team ever found a gold deposit or started a mine?
Yes to both. So Greg French on our board of directors has had quite a few discoveries to his name. One of them is actually owned by McEwen today, being Gold Bar, which is reaching production as we speak. He's also been instrumental to a number of teams that have found other deposits in the southwestern part of the U.S. And worth noting also is Chief Geologist Derek Unger was instrumental to some of the new discoveries made at New Legacy Gold in Nevada at their Iceberg project. So we do have a track record of discovery within our group. And from a development standpoint and putting assets into production, a lot of our team was part of the old Nevada Copper Group, which saw the Pumpkin Hollow project advance from an exploration stage asset all the way through engineering studies, permitting, construction, and it's now in production. So we do have a well-defined roadmap and a lot of expertise at both our board and executive level.
Okay. At Limousine, who owns the closest operating mill and how far is it from your potential ore?
So the closest operating asset in production is Kinross's Bald Mountain Complex. That's approximately 10 kilometers to the northwest. That is a heap leach project that's been operating since the 1980s. It produces approximately 200,000 ounces gold equivalent per year. It doesn't have a mill. And as Limousine Butte goes, this would initially be a heap leach project. So the cost structure to try and truck or convey the ore that far would not make sense economically because of the low cost and low capital intensity of a heap leach project. The leach pads most of the time are situated as close as possible to the known areas of mineralization. And we have sufficient area in and around our known target areas and known areas of resources today to have leach pads situated. So not many synergies in terms of leveraging already existing mills or processing infrastructure in the district.
Very good. I'm going to call on my colleague Adam Graff on the research side.
Oh, thank you. Very good. Question for you. Just thinking about Limousine Butte and the targets there, the high-grade targets, or the high-grade historic intercepts, how have you combined those historic high-grade intercepts to identify feeder structures? And and I think you may have said the surface work and geophysics work has been completed at Limo, and then the question is, do you have a slide that shows that, or what is that telling you?
I think it's telling us exactly what's occurred previously from some of the known areas of mineralization, but there are some areas that are undercover that were never previously drill tested, Adam, that we look to actually test in this 10,000 meter program as well. And that's part of the exploration part of the drill program. From a higher grade intercept standpoint, these were situated at Resurrection Ridge and Cadillac Valley, within the known areas of the resource. But a lot of the drilling historically was done by way of RC rigs and vertical holes. So the understanding of it from a resource standpoint is less than ideal in terms of what we want to accomplish with this program. So we are going to be following up on some of those higher grade areas at Resurrection Ridge and at Cadillac Valley in this current program.
Have you guys run, gravity to try to identify the major structures, cross-cutting structures, anything like that, that would, give you a clue to, how the feeder structures might be situated and how you could target for high grade, other than, trying to drill near historic high grade targets?
We have, and some of that work was actually completed by McEwen. We don't have a figure or slide on it now, but we have leveraged that in terms of where we want to vector in on the targets for this current program that we have. So we are testing some of those areas, Adam, that were never previously drilled. I think any historical project which goes back to the 1980s, a lot of the drilling that was completed was targeting the easy targets. And I think we are taking a bit of a blended approach. We do need to further test the known areas of mineralization, which I've stated, but we are taking some interesting step outs along the faults, on the other side of the faults, undercover, that we think can actually really drive the project to that multi-million ounce target. So we do see a clear path to that million ounces. If we are going to drive to that multi-million ounces, it's testing the system at depth and testing areas that haven't been drilled to date. And that's what we've taken. That's the approach we've taken in this current program, Adam.
Have you guys hit, again, talking about Limousine Butte, have you guys, hit any transitional material or sulfide material to start to give you a feel for where the oxide sulfide transition zone is?
Not in the historical drilling. So as I mentioned, it's only down to about 150 meters. We are taking some holes down to about 350 to 4. So we are looking to test some of those higher grade sulfide feeder structures in this program.
And I'm sorry, can you give us the drilling schedule again for Limousine?
So Limousine started as of last Thursday, initially at Resurrection Ridge. Then we'll shift to Cadillac Valley, and then we'll be shifting to the northeastern part of the land package, which hosts some very interesting earlier stage deposits that were tested by McEwen.
So over what time period is that whole program expected?
That leads into Q1 of 2022, Adam.
Can you drill here? Can you drill at Limousine all year round? You get snow.
You can. We actually had I'm sure maybe in this figure you can see there was a slight dusting of snow this past weekend. So you can see it's still a bit there, but conditions are great. You can drill year round. It does need to be monitored depending on the cold fronts that come in, of course, but we're comfortable drilling through the winter period and into Q1 of next year.
Brandon, what's the scuttlebutt out there, if any? We note that both Limo and Cedar Wash are on BLM ground. The BLM ground presumably is potentially vulnerable to this new proposed federal mining royalty. What's the scuttlebutt out there about your potential exposure if this is going to happen? What are you hearing?
I think as any mining company goes, there's always discussions happening from a social or at the government levels with respect to royalties. I know it's happened in Chile and Peru as of late. I did spend some time down in Chile, and it was a risk that was added. I think as a mining company, to control what you can control. That's something that is out of our control. Naturally, it's something that we keep on our radar because it does impact the project economics. But at the end of the day, if we can de-risk and advance our projects, Limousine Butte is an asset that will be economical, as will Cedar Wash, even with those added royalties. And I think that's something that is out of our control, and we need to focus on what we can do to advance and de-risk our projects today.
Question for you, Brandon. Because there is historic mining here, would this be potentially grandfathered as an existing operation, or be considered a new mine and exposed to the new mine royalty if that happens, if that passes?
I think that's definitely something that needs to be reviewed in further detail, Adam. So I don't have that answer today, per se. But the great part about having the team that we have in place, an individual like Tim Dyer is very entrenched in any of these discussions happening in Nevada. He was the ex-chairman or president of the Nevada Mining Association. So leveraging and using his network to stay in tune with these type of topics is something that we do on a regular basis. So from that standpoint, it's definitely something we need to review with the current regulatory authorities in terms of what we can and can't do with respect to Limousine Butte being a past producer, but it's not something that we have the answer to today, Adam.
Mm-hmm. And could you maybe tell us a bit more about Ptarmigan? And obviously it's kind of third priority, but the grades are very high. What are the challenges there? Is it access? Is it weather? Is it seasonality? Is it are there First Nation relationships? What's the lay of the land there?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't necessarily call it third priority. I think all of the assets in our portfolio are priority, but as you can tell with the name of the company being NevGold, the initial focus out of the gates was Nevada. We do feel that Nevada resources and exploration assets will always command a premium in the market, which I think you see. But in terms of Ptarmigan, we wanted to take a step back. There was a lot of historical work completed by Silver Mountain Mines that we needed to really wrap our heads around before driving into a drill program. And I think we've now completed that. You obviously do have some seasonality factors, but like any place in British Columbia, northern British Columbia or Canada, you can drill year round. It just comes at a different cost structure. So from that standpoint, we do want to wrap our heads around what the asset entails from a technical standpoint before we push into any sort of drilling. We're now in the midst of that, and we think taking a systematic approach will in the end drive more value for our shareholders.
Was the prior owner of Silver Mountain, were they just not able to sort of figure it out? What's the, and you guys are, obviously looking at this with fresh eyes. What happened there?
I think a combination of things. They worked on it actively from around 2010 to 2014. And then unfortunately the markets turned. So from 2014 to today, effectively the project was on care and maintenance, irrespective of what occurred in the precious metals markets, inclusive of silver, gold, and also copper, because this is a polymetallic project. The company was unable to fund at reasonable levels without taking on too much dilution. So that allowed us an opportunity to look at it as part of our reverse takeover in terms of utilizing an already live listed company that came with an interesting high grade polymetallic asset. But in summary, they weren't able to drill over the last 6-7 years when they really should have been drilling that asset because the markets turned and the capital structure of the company was in trouble. So it's not for lack of technical merits, but I think it was lack of the ability to raise money at reasonable levels to actually do the work that was needed to advance the project. So from our standpoint in NevGold, we've now taken all the historical data, 14,000 meters of diamond drilling. You have geophysics and geochemical analysis that's being completed. We've now got that in the 3D geological softwares, and Ptarmigan offers our shareholders a really interesting lever in terms of the value.
I guess, my thought process is, the grades there are pretty flashy. I understand that if you have Nevada oxide gold, you get a premium, and I understand, capital costs and operating costs tend to be very low, and the resource you have so far is pretty decent grade for a gold oxide deposit. I'm just trying to understand, with those high grades at Ptarmigan, seems like, it should be a priority. I would and it will be into 2022. It's just a matter of staging into these projects and ensuring that you take a systematic approach. I don't think we're in the business, we're owner-operators of spending for the sake of spending. There are a lot of targets identified at Ptarmigan, but we didn't have our heads wrapped around what the entire district could entail. And to your prior question, I think I missed one key point is
the asset previously was drilled targeting the epithermal veins, which is great, but doesn't tend to come with large tonnage. From our standpoint, we think we needed to wrap our head around what that sulfide feeder system could be, because that's where the real tonnage and interest from a value standpoint from other companies looking at the asset will be. So we did want to take a step back and ensure that we were drilling the right targets and not just tagging the vein from a drilling standpoint. But like you said, there are some extremely high Bonanza style grades at that project that warrant further work.
I presume that, come the, mid 2022 or late 22, you'll sort of reevaluate all three of these projects and reprioritize based on the results that you get up to that point.
Definitely. All progress in terms of advancement of the assets in the portfolio will be results orientated. So naturally, we'll be reviewing the results and the drilling that comes out of the ground over the next 3 to 6 months, and we'll pivot accordingly. But with where we are today, the assets we have in Nevada offer a great platform in terms of having both a resource base along with that exploration upside. And Ptarmigan's a very interesting asset in BC that does warrant some earlier stage exploration work to systematically advance and drill the right areas. So we do have 3 district scale projects, and as we advance each, we'll then program and stage them accordingly from a work program standpoint.
Very good, very good. Is there any provision to buy back either of those royalties at Limousine Butte?
There is with McEwen Mining, which was part of the transaction. So at Cedar Wash, we can buy down the royalty from 2.5% to 1%. So that's a fantastic option to have as we further advance the project. At Limousine Butte, their 0.5% royalty is steady, so that we cannot buy down.
And maybe you can tell us a little bit about Cedar Wash and that evolving district. I know that there's a number of guys working in that overall area, as well as some historic mining.
Yeah, I think most important with Cedar Wash is the analogy to Liberty Gold's Gold Strike project, which is 7 kilometers east on the Utah side of the border. So a lot of the similar geological characteristics that occur at Gold Strike are seen at Cedar Wash. I've said this a number of times. The drilling that occurred at Cedar Wash historically by McEwen in 2017, 2018, for lack of a better saying, only scratched the surface. This was vertical 50-meter holes done with an RC rig. So naturally, hitting results like close to 11 meters of 2 gram per ton oxide material from surface, 16 meters or close to 1.4 gram per ton oxide material from surface is very interesting. But as I mentioned, taking a systematic approach, completing the surface geology, and then following that up with a phase 1 drilling program is the approach that NevGold will be taking. And we think that is the best way to manage the value and the risk associated with any program. We could go and test these already known areas of drilling already, but we think it's better to take a step back, get through the soil mapping, surface sampling, and then follow that up with a drill program. But as I mentioned, most important analogy at Cedar Wash is Liberty Gold's Gold Strike project, and the geology and mineralization looks extremely similar. So the fact that that has a plus 1 million ounce resource today offers a lot of opportunities in terms of how we build the story around Cedar Wash.
All right. Let me pass it on to Erdy. Maybe he's got a few questions for you.
Thank you. Thanks, Brandon. I think you mostly answered this. For the Cedar Wash, how much the surface geology is helping you to find targets? You mentioned you guys are doing soil sampling, finding soil anomalies. I'm wondering if it is outcropping, how helpful it is.
It is outcropping at Cedar Wash. There's a very interesting, and I will draw, interesting 2 kilometer golden soil anomaly right in this area. And sorry I use yellow there, but there's a very interesting 2 kilometer golden soil anomaly which has outcropping at surface. But a lot of this area to the southwest, which was just recently organically staked by NevGold, doesn't have enough surface work on it. So we are going to be blanketing the entire land package. We do have boots on the ground as we speak in terms of our team in Nevada, and they are going through some of the surface geology work currently, and that will allow us to then vector in on the key drill targets. But you're seeing a lot of the signatures that you would want to see at surface, and that will help us drive into that drill program and pick the best targets for that phase 1 program.
Mm-hmm. And for the Limousine Butte, that historical producing pit, what it is telling to you when you look at the bottom of the pit or on the wall of the pits, you see different rock types, and when you look at your samples and the rock types that you collected, how it is helping to you?
I mean, as they say, the best place to look for new deposits is in the shadow of the head frame. I realize this isn't a head frame, but it's an open pit. So I think what our team's seeing, it's pretty clear the fault structure trending northeast to southwest was the key control of mineralization. You can see the cross section on this slide. And really the key target is the contact between the Pilot Shale and the Gilmet limestone. So that is what we're seeing throughout our project. We do want to understand some of the areas that have never been drill tested, but it's pretty clear that there's a number of areas, which is pretty descriptive on that slide of where the historical drilling was, that there are key areas of known mineralization that warrant further follow-up, but there's also areas that were never drill tested that we're still seeing that Pilot Shale and Gilmet limestone contact. So we are seeing the right rocks and the right host rocks to host other areas of known mineralization, along with the 6 to 7 targets that have already been identified historically.
Have you sampled the bottom of the pit? Do you have an access?
We do. You can pretty much access it just by walking in. I think there's some figures potentially on our website with myself even down on site about a month and a half ago in the bottom of the pit. It is being sampled. We've had discussions about potentially drilling from the bottom of the pit and testing it. That will be something that we look at, and we've done some sampling on the side of the pit, and we're seeing the right signatures, but our drilling initially, as mentioned, will be focused on that Resurrection Ridge, which is just trending to the northeast.
Got it. Thank you, Brandon. That's all from me. Campbell?
Yeah, thank you. If anyone has any more questions, I think we're going to wrap up. Short and sweet, and everyone enjoy their weekend. So when you check out, please share your feedback. You can either do it right now or just follow up with the email or when you check out. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Artie. I'm going to pass it back to you, Brandon, to close us and kind of maybe tee us up for expected catalysts in the next 3 months.
For sure. Thanks, Campbell, and thanks, Amvest team. I think just in parting words, it's a very interesting time at the company. We've started our drilling. Assays are expected in the 2nd to 3rd week in November, and assays will continue into Q1 of 2022. So there will be a lot of news coming out over the next 3 to 6 months. And I think we're at a great point in time from a valuation standpoint at sub 20 million Canadian. And we have the right path and the right team to drive that valuation re-rate by way of the drill bit, which, as we know in this business, is the real value add. So from my side, that's it,
Great.
Campbell, and thanks again to everyone for listening this morning.
Thank you. And if you have any questions, reach out to Amvest, reach out to NevGold, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.